AJ, I'm drawing parallels here to the talks that we've had in the past around focusing and leaning into your strengths, because from what Henry's telling us, that people with ADHD can be hyper focused on things that they're passionate about. So I'm thinking that, if people with ADHD have specific strengths that I think if hyper focus is one of the things that they're dealing with, then man, look out. They're going to really lean into those strengths.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the Art of Network Engineering podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore tools, technologies, and talented people. We aim to bring you information that will expand your skill sets and toolbox and share the stories of fellow network engineers.
Welcome to the Art of Network Engineering. I am AJ Murray, and tonight my co-host is the one, the only, the Tim Bertino. Tim, thanks for joining me. Our guest this evening, his name is Henry Lam, and he is an ADHD life coach. He reached out to us via email and kind of pitched the idea of, hey, I've got this great idea for a show, and we just latched right onto it. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. So we're really excited to welcome Henry to the show. Henry, thank you so much for giving us your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me, AJ and Tim.
Absolutely. Henry, can you tell us a little bit more about your background as an ADHD life coach?
Yeah, so first of all, I also have ADHD, which is ADHD combined type. And I struggled for many years with undiagnosed ADHD. I was the typical ADHD kid when I was weirdly just at home, but at school, I was the quiet boy who daydreamed, which is kind of like the opposite of the usual typical ADHD kid, the stereotype. And I got diagnosed when I was 22 because I almost dropped out of college, and the one therapist was like, maybe you have ADHD. I was like, oh, okay. And then I got diagnosed, and it made sense, like, oh, why I struggled for many years. I couldn't be consistent in doing math. I was smart, but I just didn't put much effort, and I could be all over the place, or I could just be like just dead zombie in the class. And so after I got diagnosed, I started learning more about ADHD and trying to fix it, cure it, etc., and dealing with other issues and seeing an ADHD therapist. And then one day I found, hey, I can help other people with ADHD as an ADHD coach, because I saw, hey, they help people with ADHD and you get freedom and you can live the life you want on your own terms, which I was really rebellious for many years. So, and still am. And it's like, oh, you can, be more true to yourself instead of sucking up to a company or other things of that nature. So I became a life coach through the Life Purpose Institute, and then I specialized in ADHD with taking courses at the ADHD Coaching Academy, and then now it's been 2.5 years, working on myself and my coaching business.
That's great. So I know part of when you reached out to us, you took it as helping people focus, particularly people with ADHD, but a lot of what you can offer can help folks even if they don't have ADHD. And I think a lot of people today, even if they don't, I think they suffer from, the doom scrolling on social media. And that just, I know it happens to me, right? Right. So I get stuck in the doom scrolling. I'm looking at what other content creators are doing in our niche, trying to get some ideas for content for us. And now my attention span is just not there. Like I sometimes find it difficult to focus on tasks for extended periods of time. And that's not something that used to be a problem for me. So before we get too much further down the road, let's start at the beginning and define what is ADHD and what does it look like?
Yeah. So ADHD is categorized by the medical professionals as a neurodevelopmental disorder. So that means your brain didn't develop as properly as other people. So it's a disorder and you have to treat it. And symptoms can be inattention, which means you're disorganized, poor memory, etc. Hyperactivity means you keep talking, keep moving, can't sit down and be quiet. And impulsivity, meaning you don't think before you speak or you act, etc. So these are just the categories of ADHD. Of course, there's specific behaviors for each, and then some people might have all of them, or they might have just inattention, which is more common in, say, network engineers, or they could be combined as well for network engineers. It would be less being just a hyperactive, impulsive person, which is more like the stereotype. If it's they're hyperactive and impulsive, that's more like the stereotypical kid. But they do outgrow some of it, but they're still hyperactive or impulsive in their mind, or they channel it in different ways.
Now, Henry, you mentioned being diagnosed in your early 20s. Is there any sort of typical age or period in life where this is diagnosed in people? Or, I mean, do you see, are a lot of kids seen and diagnosed? Or at what point do we think this is starting to show in people?
Yeah, so it's more commonly diagnosed in kids, especially boys, especially the typical hyperactive, impulsive kid, the stereotype. It's being more diagnosed in adults now, more so females, since they're more likely to seek help. But usually it's everyone else. They can get lost in a crowd. They get diagnosed with anxiety, depression, bipolar, borderline, etc. So, because there's a spectrum of ADHD folks, it can be hard to pinpoint. / most practitioners in healthcare and mental health care don't understand ADHD because there's a spectrum of folks. So it's hard for people to understand ADHD, and that they don't understand ADHD in general. So.
And let's tap into that a little bit further, because I was starting to have this question in Zatharian in the chat read my mind. It's how do we diagnose people with ADHD? What does that process look like?
Yeah, so for ADHD testing, they have you go through questionnaires about your daily life and your possible ADHD symptoms, and they are categorized under inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. So they're like grouped, and and then there's like a scale of your rating for each, and then you could have low symptoms, medium symptoms, or high symptoms. So there's a range, and then so some people might have high, some people have medium, some people have low. And there's some things that can worsen ADHD, like really poor sleep or poor breathing or other health problems. So your symptoms would be higher, and that's what it seems like when with people I worked with. If you have anxiety and depression and like really bad sleep, you're on like the high symptoms, and then you're on so many drugs. And I'm like, this is, and then you doesn't mean like, okay, you have that stuff that maybe like if you solve everything, you don't have ADHD, because they don't test like, hey, that you have the special traits in ADHD that stand out. Like you're really creative, innovative, you can really hyper focus, you have high energy levels, you're really resilient, you're very spontaneous, enthusiastic, you're very high risk taking, etc. So these are like the positives. So that's the problem too. It's like, they don't really like test for those. Maybe they do test for IQ and stuff in conjunction, but they don't look at that. It's like that kind of stuff is like, I know that's more like true ADHD, but of course they don't test like that, because it's like ADHD people really stand out when they're healthy and at their best. It's just the symptoms, like even if you got a brain injury, you could have like ADHD symptoms too, because the front part of your brain is the prefrontal cortex that regulates your planning, your executive functions, your focus. So when that gets damaged, which can get damaged in many ways, or not working properly, like with poor sleep, give anybody sleep apnea, they're going to have ADHD-like symptoms. Doesn't mean they have ADHD. They're so yeah, so there's a range of that. Plus, looking at the rest of their life too, not just what they score. So, and then some people do see, like more extensive testing on other things because they might have other issues. So they pay $8,000-10,000 just to get tested because they've all just to rule out things, or they have money and they have other issues. So they kind of look at the whole life, that you had it your whole life, but you could have some of the things I mentioned your whole life too. So that's of course a lot of this gets complicated here, but I always try to do they really have that positive traits? But ADHD coaching does help with executive function, so it can help people who maybe have pseudo ADHD and don't really have ADHD, or they just on TikTok too much and has wired their brain for 3-4 years to be less focused, and you gotta build that training wheel back on to focus more. So
guilty as charged.
Yep. It's funny you say that, because I literally this morning removed Facebook from my phone, because it's like I have to be done. Nothing productive is coming from this. And with how it's kind of changed somewhat recently, I don't know about you, but I've less and less seen on Facebook like actual posts from friends. There's a lot of sponsored things and just things that Facebook thinks that I would like. And I'm like, I'm not really getting anything out of this anyway. So just get it gone.
Hey, Henry, as Tim mentioned, and as you mentioned, you were diagnosed later on in life. Do we have any sort of idea on, how many people may be going about their life undiagnosed? Is there some percentages around this? Is this more common than we think? Can you give us an idea on that?
yeah, so it depends on which country and where.
Sure.
Say globally, adults are 4 to 5% affected. Then children would be around double of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in some countries they don't have a mental health awareness, and they don't diagnose, and it costs money, and the stigma, etc., of being diagnosed with something. And so people going through their life struggling and not knowing, and seek and getting help when it doesn't match. It's like I can go on Reddit, on different subreddits, but this person has ADHD. What can I do about it? Besides keep posting or something. But I can't just tell them they have ADHD. It's like, okay, I feel sad that you're struggling with that, and you don't know that you have ADHD. So yeah.
And you mentioned stigma. I'm a child of the 80s and the 90s, and growing up during that time period, ADHD had a huge kind of negative connotation, stigma associated with it. How is it today? Is that still there? Is it more widely accepted or more understood than it was perhaps back then?
Yeah, so ADHD, it's a little bit better now, but still it's a stigma. So you see the letters, it's like a death sentence, and then like what you see first or know first is like what it is. It's like, oh, he can focus, he doesn't have ADHD. that doesn't mean anything. And TikTok ADHD folks, they're doing good job and stuff. So it's like, and reframing ADHD as a positive thing. And then now there is some people who are pushing like it's a brain difference, which it is a brain difference. If it just the brain doesn't mature as fast as other people, but then have really great strengths that the other people don't have. So looking at that way, and that a lot of the people that are famous in any field that HTB would be work really well in, like network engineering, some of the best people are ADHD folks. The celebrities, like whether it's Ryan Reynolds, who's everywhere, and even former past president before the current one. There's things about ADHD that are addicting to other people, and ironically, ADHD people are addicted to addicting things, especially ADHD folks. So watch out for ADHD folks. You don't want to get addicted to them. So they're dangerous. And many of the famous athletes, entrepreneurs, entertainers, tech professionals, etc., have ADHD. So when looking at that, it's like there's a lot of great people with ADHD. Of course, if only they spoke out more about, together, public, PR, with Super Bowl or whatever it is, that, if you have, signs of ADHD, get help, get support, and stop, we get inside our own world too much, and there's a lot of negative self-talk and self-hate and anxiety and depression because of that, and it's really troubling. So yeah.
You've kind of touched on it here and there, but it sounds like through all this negativity, there's a lot of positives with folks that might have ADHD. What are some of those? Can we start to highlight some of those just to kind of step away from the negative maybe a little bit?
Yeah. So ADHD folks, they're really creative, innovative, network engineering, software engineering, a lot of creativity and innovation, so they can, really focus for hours with their hyper focus, meaning you could focus for 12, 16, 18 hours, which is probably not good because you're burnt out, but, just keep on solving problems and inventing things. So, and then quick thinking, adaptability, keen interest, and their passion, and just going, full on with whatever that is, and having strong empathy and compassion for others, so being really good at helping others and caring for people, being spontaneous and enthusiastic, resilience, and high energy levels. So these, not everyone has these, it depends on the person, so it's a spectrum as usual.
AJ, I'm drawing parallels here to the talks that we've had in the past around focusing and leaning into your strengths, because from what Henry's telling us, that people with ADHD can be hyper focused on things that they're passionate about. So I'm thinking that, if people with ADHD have specific strengths, that I think in it, if hyper focus is one of the things that they're dealing with, then man, look out. They're going to really lean into those strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Henry, you've touched on a few times, network engineers, we tend to need to focus for long periods of time, either studying for, certifications, learning new technologies, big projects at work. If we're somebody who struggles with that, whether we have ADHD or not, what are some tips and tactics that folks can do to help kind of build that focus back if we've kind of lost it a little bit?
Yeah. So finding ways to focus and gaining it back. So, finding, what works for you to get into focus. So there's many ways to get focus, like 1,000 ways to get focus. Even squeezing your abs helps you focus because it dilates your pupils and then makes you focus. So it's like having a list of activities that refresh your mind, to get back into focus, whether it's reading something you like, whether you do a little hobby that you enjoy for 10-15 minutes, whether you do some quick push-ups, or marching and then touching your elbows to your knees, with opposite arm and opposite leg, things of that nature. Is like, making your brain turn on. Even putting cold water on your face, turns on your brain to focus. So there's so many ways. So having a list and picking one and doing it. Of course, in conjunction with that is also taking breaks. It's like, okay, 4-hour limit, 1-2 hour break. Besides having maybe little breaks in the 4 hours if need. So making sure that you stop the car and let it cool down the engine before you turn it back on. But you got to warm it up, just like in video games, like say League of Legends or other stuffs. Like the best players, they have to warm up. They do eye training or hand training or whatever it is, warm ups before they get into game, they talk to themselves positively, they visualize success, they you know write down what they're going to do, and and then set limits on things, and then get into it, block out distractions, dark room, one screen, go, which does help you focus. If you just turn off the lights, just look at it, one screen, one thing, you're in focus mode. So setting up that you're taking things seriously and you're blocking things and taking care of yourself, you can sustain attention for a long time. And then adding in that, hey, to when you sometimes when you hyper focus, especially with ADHD folks, they're kind of like holding their breath or breathing really fast. So it's like taking time to slowly breathe in through their nose and then breathe out through their nose is important during their breaks, and when they're feeling stressed or anxious, etc. And watching, like, with working remotely, a lot of folks are, it's like the meetings are even worse when remotely. So it's like ADHD folks hate meetings. It's like it's like
I don't think
one of their
that's limited to
kryptonites.
just ADHD
Yeah,
folks.
ADHD folks really hate it though. So like finding ways for you to focus during meetings, so
Yeah.
afterwards you don't kill your focus for your next task.
Sure.
So finding ways to before the session and during the session to focus, in afterwards, like, okay, I need to reset myself. I got stress from or board stress sitting in a meeting. I need to release that and get into the hyper focus mode to get things done, because then it's like afterwards it's like they ate a really bad, heavy, delicious McDonald's meal, and then they're like, oh, I gotta focus now after a meeting. It's like you didn't eat
Impossible.
anything, but that
Yeah.
meeting feels like, oh my god, it just like ruins your day. And it's like, and then people who have meetings in the morning, it's like, that's terrible. A lot of people focus the best in the morning. So doing your best work in the morning, usually, unless those night owls are bad sleep disorders, it's like get things done in the morning before lunch, and so you can feel better about yourself, and you don't do it the second half of the day, after you ate McDonald's or whatever, and not feel good about yourself, which with especially programmers and engineers, they can have a bad lifestyle with their food. So it's like keeping that stuff away and taking care of your body, like just like how an athlete does, or a professional esports, like you eat bad stuff, you're not going to get your hyper focus and your creativity and problem solving skills to be 100%. You got to value it, and if you're addicted to that stuff, you can transfer out. It's just it takes time. It takes time to create a huge network. It takes time to change your habits.
That's a lot. I like a lot of the tactics that you suggested, except the ab one. I wouldn't be able to do the ab one because I'd have to get the abs first. But hey,
yes,
there's goals there. One thing is, you were talking about practicing focus. Something that I believe, AJ, we've talked about in an episode or two before on the show, probably when talking about study habits and tactics and that kind of thing, is and I think this is what it is. If I don't get it right, let me know. But the Pomodoro technique, where you go heads down for X amount of time, and then you give yourself somewhat of a break. Are strategies or tactics like that applicable to folks with ADHD?
Yeah. So you brought up a good point. So ADHD, they work their best when they're in sprints. So you're blocking out time, and then there's urgency to get something done. That's why a lot of them procrastinate to the deadline, because that's when it's like, that's where their brain gets so much energy to just execute. So you need daily deadlines and short sprints up to 4 hours in a period to get things done, and then you got to break things down into small tasks and then track progress, like in a video game. And you see that bar, and a lot of video games, they do so much mundane, boring things or stuff that's repetitive and there's no variety, but they show progress, and it's predictable, and they're giving you a lot of positive feedback. Great job, I did it, nailed it, keep the good work, etc. So having even just listening to that while doing those long periods of work will help you focus better, because you're getting, satisfaction from it. It's like, okay, it's probably not good to just drink, Coca-Cola for 4 hours to get work done. Yes, because you're getting positive dopamine from that. But, just listening to music that's good for focus, or just phrases, will help keep pushing your focus along, and taking time to, put in that time to pre-warm up your focus, just like you do a jogging and light sprinting before you actually sprint, so the muscles are ready to fire. So yeah, the Pomodoro is great. And improving on that, some folks use, the visual timers to have like a pie chart so they can see time more, or use a sand timer, etc. Or even if they need be, use people, like, okay, we're going to get a, partner, we're going to work for 25 minutes, we're going to share what we did, and keep on going, something like that. Because ADHD people, they do get more motivation and focus when they're accountable with people even more. It's like, having, somebody, their systems are super online, they're great at helping other people, but not so much at themselves a lot of times. So
I kind of like that idea of I don't know, mirroring somebody, right? Like you work together in a room, you see the example. Oh, somebody's working. I better work too. As somebody that works remotely, I don't mind it, but sometimes it'd be nice to have a friend around to work with every now and then. But I think that's some great advice, right? Like if you're alone at your desk, even in the office, maybe you book a conference room, or get to a shared space and work with somebody for a little bit for those short sprints. And yeah, the Pomodoro technique, I think it's like 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of relaxing. And I think you do like 4 of those, and then you take like a longer extended break. Um, I recall when I was doing meditation, there's this idea or thing called equanimity, and it's like your brain is a muscle, and just like any other muscle in your body, you have to work it to get it to build strength. And if you can, the idea of meditation is mental calmness. Clear your mind, don't think about anything. If thoughts start to barge in there, you recognize it, and then kind of like push them away and get back to that mental calmness again. When I was starting my meditation journey, I learned about this idea of equanimity, and as I started to build that up and get better at meditation, I found I got better at working for longer sprints because I was building my focus back. Is that a technique or anything that you would recommend?
yeah, so mind body mindfulness meditation, somatic exercises, tai chi, qigong, yoga, all those things, well, and even martial arts, help with focus and ADHD so much. So even just breathing in slowly and exhaling slowly, you're bringing in dopamine to this part of the brain. As mentioned before, that's the prefrontal cortex, which is related to focus and motivation and planning. So if you want to focus better and feel better, you make sure that this part of the brain is getting, air and dopamine throughout the day. So having those periods during your day, even a couple breaths, really changes the game of
Mhm.
Your productivity, your communication, etc. Especially even non-ADHD folks, because we take on so much stress in life, and when stress, the first thing the body shuts down with so much stress is that part of the brain. And it's like, what did they do at stores and online shopping and stuff? It's like, shut that part of the brain down and just like take your money. And that's what they're doing.
Mm.
And video games wants you to shut it down too, because video games, you don't need this, they already have it out for you, you just follow their thing, and you keep going. So so finding what works for you with meditation, mindfulness, breathing, etc., and incorporate that, throughout your day. I mean, martial arts is one of the best things though, because you're getting the exercise and you're getting the mind body awareness. And the folks who, when they're little, the mom sent there, they do really well. I mean, like, I'm Chinese American, and Jackie Chan has ADHD. His son was like, oh, my dad has ADHD, and it's like, oh, and then look at him, oh, his story, oh, he's typical ADHD kid but in Asia. So Jackie Chan then was sent to martial arts, and that's where he disciplined his mind and his body, and then channel into being a creative and an action star in movies. So when your mind and body is aligned, then you can channel your energy and focus into whatever you want if you're really curious and passionate about it. Because if maybe network engineering isn't for you, if you can't keep up the certifications, or losing the drive to learn or whatever, it's like maybe something else. Then it is what it is, or it's maybe like your body's just not keeping up anymore and you've been abusing it, not to your fault, because a lot of things are just pushed for you to do bad things in this society. So it's like fixing your health and getting aligned with your principles and values is important.
No, it's usually my fault. I'll take ownership for that.
That's great.
So, Henry, shifting gears a little bit, and let's talk about support and treatment. When do you recommend people start seeking treatment or help from assistance from a doctor?
Yeah, so when their daily life is really affected by their ADHD. So typically, it's like, when their productivity is so bad and their home life, so much things going on, it's like, then, they can't handle it. Usually when it's like they get a new job or a higher position, or they just got married, or their kids now just got a house. And then it's like, the brain just opens up, because there's so much stress. And it's like, that, they don't feel themselves. And there's like, then tell a doctor, and it's like, okay, it's like, okay, send to, psychiatrist or therapist, and check what's going on. So, it's usually when those crisis moments, or the new life changes, people seek out help, for ADHD or not. And it's like, a whole bunch of the people seek out for life coaching. It's like, you might have ADHD and you not know it, and it's like, yeah, you could use medication, or you could also use a coach as well to help manage that, that you've been getting by without developing some skills, because you're smart and you're good at your job, and you like it. It's just, there's some things that could be improved, because we don't want you to burn out, because ADHD folks, especially the successful ones, they work too much, and then don't take care of themselves, and then they burn out.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So what does burnout, like, let's define it. What, like, if we're just so hyper focused on stuff, how can we tell that we're starting to burn out?
Yeah, so you don't feel motivated to do the things you like to do during work and outside of work. Everything becomes more of a chore. You're more exhausted. Your sleep is worse, and everything is kind of like going out, and and then and then you might start feeling more overwhelmed, and with things that you weren't overwhelming before, or and things of that, or the opposite. It's like, this doesn't do it for me anymore, and and then you start having you have anxiety, or you're feeling depressed, etc.
And what are some ways that folks can, come back from burnout? Do they just go on vacation for a little bit? Or sometimes that might be difficult to do. How do you combat that? How do you recover?
Yeah, so taking time to work on your health, mindfulness, meditation, going out into nature, improving your sleep routine, eating foods that are nourishing to you, and talking to people about your challenges, and seeking mental health, and 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 then try to refresh your life with some hobbies you used to do, or some having something you enjoy, and being thankful, and writing down things, and looking at things, just re-exploring yourself too, can be very helpful, to see. It's like, maybe do have to take a vacation, maybe you do need a new career, or you just adjust how you do your job, or you get a different position at your company. So, it could be many ways. It's just like, what's you? So, as a coach, I'm here to find what works for you. There's 1,000 ways to focus. Are you going to use all of them? No. So finding, you know, what's going to work for you at that time, and sticking to it, because especially Asian folks, sticking to something can be tough. It's the beginning, is hard, and and it takes time, to change.
So Henry, let's talk about what you do as a life coach. When someone reaches out to you, you have a new client, how do you start those sessions? How do you start that relationship to get them moving in the right direction?
Yeah. So, after the discovery call, which is, discussing, if we're a good fit for each other, what's his challenges, how I work, etc. So, we then do the intake session where, we discuss, more of his current situation details, because I gave him intake forms to find out, what's going on in his work life, his home life, what ADHD things he's struggling with, what does he want to change, what stopped him from changing before, how's his mindfulness, what are his values, what are his strengths, what is his passions, interests, etc. And then then the session afterwards is then discussing, okay, we're going to make plans for the goals you outline in intake, AC friendly goals. We don't want to be perfectionistic with the goals, but we do want to, of course, make it the typical smart goals, but some more flexibility, because you have ADHD. We just want progress. It's like in video game. It's like you don't think about, oh, that boss is level 100. It's like you don't think about you. Yes, that's like you're gonna show who's boss later, but you don't think so much about that. You think about how you're gonna get there, and that you gotta take time every day to do that and set up the system to do that. So say you want to have an organized room as your goal, for example. It's like, okay, what are the little things we're going to do right in the beginning to help decrease that it gets messy? What are you going to buy, and etc. And then like how you're going to keep maintaining it, and when you're going to schedule the time to clean it, etc. So every session, after the initial, it's like, okay, if there's 3 goals, there's 3 sessions to start working on those goals, like putting things into action, quick actionable steps. It's like, okay, distractions, you got to start blocking them, and setting up time for you to have those distractions when you have distraction time, not when you're working time. And then afterwards is adding more stuff to that stuff, or other stuff that affects their ADHD and their life to help them keep going. So it's all about little things every week. It's like, okay, what do you want to work on? Okay, let's see, what are your issues? Okay, how can we create solutions that work for you? How can you use your strength in problem solving to fix this issue? And it's like, oh wait, you did this before. It's like, could you reapply it and remember to do it more often? So a good portion, like 80% solutions, you kind of already have it. We're trying to flesh it out, through talking and questions to get you the solution, and then you try to keep it that way until it doesn't work anymore, and we keep changing it up. But we want to make sure it's like it works for you, because there's so many solutions, because the books are just all general solutions. They're not you. They don't understand your life, your preferences, your personality. So as a coach, it's like, okay, 80% it's you, 20% it's, yeah, maybe there's some tools that work really well for you versus other tools, and you like that thing more. So you got to work with you 80%, and then 20% is everything else. And it just, keep practicing those things, because, you got so many, you got, anxiety, depression, or negative thoughts, and, self-sabotaging, and, there's a lot of stuff to work on to get you to be like, okay, ADHD is actually okay. It's actually a wonderful thing. That's why you like network engineering. It's just when you're not healthy in your mind and body, then you're not going to be yourself. And not having a support system, like, whether it's a company, your house, or, if you live in Canada and it's so cold and that makes you miserable, it's like I mean
It feels like a personal
another
shot, Henry.
then that's also another challenge too. It's like, okay, you got to get light therapy more often when you live in the north, or find ways to be more social and not be in the house, and find activities you enjoy once again, or something new that will make you more you.
That's all great advice, Henry. I want to ask you this before we sign off, and I probably should have asked you this earlier. When you were going kind of through your journey, at what point did you kind of realize, like, hey, I can help people, and kind of run with that?
Yeah, so when I was seeing an HD coach myself, but I kind of brushed it off in the beginning, but then I wasn't thinking too much of it, but like because I made a mistake and thought everyone with ADHD is like the people on Reddit, and Reddit is like, if you go on Reddit ADHD, it's like it's a doomsday ADHD. It's like the worst thing in the world. So it's like, don't go on that, because it's really like like a heart attack, that subreddit. So, but it's like when I think about, okay, yeah, I could be a psychologist, I like problem solving, I like helping people, or a researcher or entrepreneur. It's like, ADHD coach kind of does a bunch of things, and also kind of like a consultant, which a lot of IT consultants are ADHD, because there's like, I got a client, he has a problem, I focus for hours, new client next day, focus for hours next day, so it's like, okay, yeah, I can do that, and a lot of psychiatrists and a good portion of therapists have ADHD, ironically, too. So it's like, okay, yeah, I can be a coach and help people across the world, and you know make the world even a better place and more funner place, because ADHD people are fun and interesting folks, and and filling a gap in the void. And most coaches don't have ADHD, and um, most ADHD coaches don't have ADHD. They're kind of like the moms who have ADHD children or husbands. So that also fills another gap. Having another person who understands you, and then giving them my 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 love for helping people, and it's a great feeling to help people, because a lot of things we do is like, it's for other people, or we make things for other people.
Mhm.
So the people who are most satisfied, high satisfaction in life, is because they help other people and they see the benefit of what they do, with their words or their actions and their product, and gives them a good feeling. So that's why I became a coach.
I love it. We've got a couple of great questions here. I'm going to throw them both at you because they're kind of parallel. Zatharian asked in the chat on our live stream, is a life coach kind of the same thing as a psychologist, or is it really something different? And if somebody is looking for a life coach, what are some of the qualifications that folks should look for? If someone is just saying, oh, hey, I'm a life coach, but maybe they don't have any qualifications, or maybe they have the wrong qualifications. What are some things that folks can look for as they're maybe looking for some help?
Yeah. So a psychologist, they have, training in mental health, they're focused on, diagnosis of anxiety, depression, and other things. And they're focused on healing your past, with family and other things. And that's their focus, and they have all these techniques and things, and they get licensing. um, Coaches, on the other hand, they don't have to have anything, and they're more focused on solutions for your future. So think about your future as like a wall. You want to go over that wall, but then you might be dealing with anxiety and stuff. You're not even thinking about the wall. That's where you go see a therapist. But if you want to climb that wall, you see a coach. So thinking of it that way. And that, okay, there are schools for coaching, except some of them are not accredited by anything, and a good portion of them are accredited by the ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation, which kind of be like the APA, which is the American Psychological Association, does for psychologists. The ICF does for coaching, and there's a few other smaller ones. So finding a coach who studied at a school like that, and and if need be, study other things in whatever you're seeking help for. And that at the end of the day, yes, Tony Robbins didn't study at any school, and he gets paid 10,000 whatever an hour or whatever it is, and he has helped a lot of people. So of course, if you get too bogged down that, then of course sometimes it's not always that, but it's just a rule of thumb. So why MMV with that. And so the life coach, we're not going to have like any mental health techniques and stuff, but a lot of them have they could be health coaches or mindfulness, so they might specialize in something. But so in general, life coaches, they just have so different aspects of your life, how to create solutions to overcome it. But usually it's like if you have more than like moderate to high like anxiety, depression, and other stuff that's getting in the way of your life, then you're probably not ready for a life coach. You climbing the wall is going to be even more difficult. So you should see a therapist versus a life coach. Besides, some folks have really bad sleep and breathing challenges. So working on that would help you be more ready for life coaching, because some of that affects your mental. A lot of it affects your mental health. If you probably have family members. One or so, with like sleep apnea. It's like if they don't have that CPAP machine, they feel so bad after they wake up, and you're gonna be like more ADHD when if you do so. And it's like you're gonna be grouchy, you can't focus. You really need the caffeine even more than other people, etc. So.
Yeah, and like you said, if you were diagnosed or maybe you feel like you're having some struggles later on in life, you might not need a mental health professional or medications. You just need some tools, and a life coach can help kind of assess where you're at and provide you with those tools to help you get over that wall. I love the analogy. Henry, this has been a real fun conversation. If people want to learn more about you and some of these techniques and stuff that you recommended, where can they go to learn more?
Yeah. So, you see my name over here. You can type in coachhenrylam.com to reach out and ask any questions and get help if you're looking for help in the future. I'm working on a book. Well, it's a short guide, and I'm working on a group coaching program to help folks out, and one-day courses. If you, of course, don't remember that, you could just type in ADHD coaching near me to, if that is easier, since I wanted to change my name. It'd be funny if I changed my name to something that was more memorable. But embrace your strengths, seek support, tailored to your needs, because no one else is going to replace you. And you can be extraordinary in whatever you're curious or passionate about. And hey, remember, if you ever see a network engineer running around looking for their misplaced laptop while holding it in their hand, just know they might be one of us too with ADHD.
They'd be missing the console cable too, though.
Yes.
Everybody's always missing those.
Yeah,
yes.
I love it. Henry, thank you so much. I will put those links in our show notes so you can find those nice and easy. Henry, but before we sign off, is there anything that we should have asked you that we didn't?
No.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we did great. We covered the topic pretty thoroughly. This has been very informative. Thank you so much, Henry, for joining us, and we'll see you next time on another episode of the Art of Network Engineering podcast. Hey, everyone, this is AJ. If you like what you heard today, then make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcatcher. Smash that bell icon to get notified of all of our future episodes. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Art of NetEng. That's Art of NETENG. You can also find us on the web at artofnetworkengineering.com, where we post all of our show notes. You can read blog articles from the co-hosts and guests, and also a lot more news and info from the networking world. Thanks for listening.